You are listening to the Mohua Show, where it's all about celebrating the Junoon among changemakers and their journey.
Every single job is getting impacted as to how do we leverage AI.
In what ways do you really believe that AI will really reshape the future of work? And I'm quite intimidated, honestly, if you ask me as a writer. And so, do you think AI is really rewriting the rule book for how organizations will operate going forward?
I think we live in a world where, as human beings, we are drawn to people who look like us, who act like us, who talk like us. So you end up, I think we have to be very intentional. As human beings, we are given this amazing gift of conscience, which no other species has it, and no other species can think and change the outcome of a circumstance and not be just a byproduct of circumstance. So with that, we should be intentional about what can I do out of my life? What do I bring value in work? How do I build my family and friends? And what can I do to build my nation? I have always found that I'm grateful for the opportunity where I can keep away all the noise out of what we see in geopolitics and news. Really, as human beings, then each of these cultures have so much to really teach us. Every single job is getting impacted as to how do we leverage AI technology in every part of the job. You talked of being a writer, whether you're a writer, whether you're a musician. Today I was seeing a post by Shekhar Kapoor, the famous film director, and he talks of how he was judged in one of the AI hackathons for movie making.
The world of technology is changing faster than ever. We all know that. AI is reshaping the future of work. Digital transformation is redefining how organizations operate, and India is emerging as a global force in innovation. But behind every major shift, we know that there are leaders, there are people who just adapt to the future. They don't just adapt, actually, they help shape it. So today we are joined by one such leader, Shalini Sankarshana, Managing Director and Country Head of Planview India. With over 2 decades, yes, you heard me right, 2 decades of experience building global product ecosystems and leading transformative teams across the US, Europe, and Asia, she is widely recognized as a visionary, voice in technology, leadership, and the future of work. And I'm already intimidated because technology is really not one of my strongest points. Welcome, Shalini, in today's episode.
Thank you, Moa. Thank you for having me here.
What
Truly
an honor.
great.
What an honor for me to have you here with me. I mean, women like you are so inspirational. You've spent over 2 decades shaping global product ecosystems. So, what were those early experiences or turning points, that set you in this whole trajectory, into technology and also leadership, which both have to go hand in hand as the world is evolving? And I'm learning that really late in life, but I'm learning. Tell me a little bit about you.
Um, Fairly straightforward life, not nothing exciting, but I think a few things that have always shaped me. One is I've generally been a person saying yes to a lot of things in life. Um, I try not to overthink, overanalyze, or get intimidated by what is coming up next. Generally excited to jump into it. I think that has helped me. That has helped open doors. Not that everything has been hunky dory, but that has definitely opened a lot of doors. And when doors close, windows open, and something else opens. So, I think that's been the flow. Second, I've been incredibly blessed with a lot of great mentors and sponsors, people who hold your back when even you're not in the room, right? I think those are the most important people for you in life. And I have always sought help, welcomed help. I think that's helped me in my life, because a lot of times, in the name of courage, we try to accomplish everything ourselves. Doesn't work. It's never a lone sport. From a professional standpoint, I think very early on in my career, while began as a technologist, very early on in my career, I realized the power of marrying technology to truly driving business value, which is getting closer to customers, getting closer to users, being part of what does it mean to really have an impact on business. I think that has helped a lot in how my career has flowed, where I am right now.
Amazing, amazing. I hate to speak about this whole cliched thing, but as a woman to navigate, it is slightly harder, or let me say, way more harder as a woman, when you're when you're really shouldering so many responsibilities, and someone like you who's worked across global markets, and product ecosystems. So how do you personally really define leadership in today's technology landscape? Because technology and women are still, not two things that really go together even now, like how finance and women don't go together. And there are less CFOs who are women that I find. So I need to figure this out from you, Shalini.
I may have a slightly different or a contrarian point of view on women and technology, Mova. I have found that technology has been a really, really good neutralizing force, almost neutralizing the gaps between women, men, and any other disparities you may have. Um, I genuinely feel that because I think suddenly technology has given a single platform to folks who can excel at it and not have a lot of prior societal, organizational structures really stop you. I'm not saying things are all fully sorted out, but definitely is a platform which democratizes opportunity. That's how I feel it, right? So I think any woman or any individual should certainly not be intimidated by technology, because I think today technology is genuinely shaping into something that is in your hand, tips of your fingers. So having said that, yes, I think we live in a world where, as human beings, we are drawn to people who look like us, who act like us, who talk like us. So you end up almost instinctively not looking for diversity, not looking for inclusion. So I think we have to be very intentional. As human beings, we are given this amazing gift of conscience, which no other species has it, and no other species can think and change the outcome of a circumstance and not be just a byproduct of circumstance. So with that, we should be intentional about it. I think it's a beautiful thing to be intentional and build opportunities for yourself and for the rest. um, so while all this is happening in my mind, you asked about what does leadership today look like in this technologically evolving landscape. I think you used the right word, evolution. So number one is adapt, adapt, adapt. So if we can't adapt, I don't think how much ever you are a superstar today, it's not a guarantee you'll be a superstar tomorrow if you cannot adapt. Number one. Number two, I think both creativity and ability to synthesize is going to be number one skill in my mind as a leader, because the amount of data points that's hitting you at any single point in time from every aspect, you have to continuously be able to curate, create new points of view, align it back to your business, continuously synthesize. I think that's going to be a muscle that we all have to build. um, I would say third is courage. I think there is enough in the world to intimidate us. So, how do we have that depth of conviction in ourselves and what we believe, while adapting? I think courage with humility. Probably those are the
Yes.
three things that comes to
Yeah.
my mind.
I think, people who are courageous definitely have got the humility, because courage also arises from a whole lot of, failures. And yeah, otherwise, without that, you will not find courageous people. So they both go hand in hand. Amazing. You've also like led teams, across US, Europe, and Asia. I mean, it's so diverse. How has working across these cultures shaped your leadership philosophy? Definitely all of us have got a philosophy with which we work, and each of these geographies have got a different way of working. So tell us a little bit, about that.
I think this has definitely reinforced my belief that you have to be constantly learning, because for me, every single day I interact with these teams, whether it's part of my organization or my customers' organization, is such a joyous source of learning, right? It just continues to reinforce that for me, because leadership cannot exist without learning. There is no way any single leader has all the answers. While having said that, each of these cultures are absolutely, as you rightly said, have a lot of different nuances, and it's shaped by their histories, right? Um, from economies who have grown through survivalist, where you have fought wars, and you've continued to look at how do I optimize my spends, or how do I always constantly be on the brink of, being the most defensible, most secure. So all of this is, so whatever economies today we see and whatever cultures today we see, I think they're all shaped by the histories we have led. So I think that's fascinating for me. For example, today I have the opportunity to work with a Swedish team, to a German team, to an England team, to a French team, to an Israeli team, an Austin team, and of course my beautiful Indian team. So I think there is so much difference. A few things is, for example, when I initially a few years ago, or a couple of a decade and a half ago, when I really started working closer with some of our European teams, I realized Europe is a vast conglomerate of multiple subcultures.
Mhm.
So while we
Truly.
club everything as Europe, it's
Mm.
absolutely not that.
Yeah.
When you're working with an English team, one of the most beautiful things I learned is the detail, the ability and attention to detail that you go to, the precision you go to when you're planning, and when so that you can completely build predictable execution. I really learned that working with some of our English teams. Right, I learned the ability to say no and stick to no when I work with some of our other European teams, that is German and Swedish. And when I work with some of the Swedish teams, I understand what it means to be truly inclusive. I think each subculture has taught me so much. When I work with North American teams, the ability to bring specificity. They don't just stay at this 10,000 foot level. They actually go down to what does it mean? Ability to stay strategic. When I work with our Indian teams, I think the ability to create solutions out of any given problem. Um, I have never heard much of a no, from the teams. So, like I said, I think it's been a great journey of learning. But also at the end of it all, there are two or three realities that remain the same. One is people genuinely are working hard to do
Yeah.
the right thing to create value, and most professionals, almost all professionals are basically looking for that validation of the value they bring to the table. Okay. And I think when you started that conversation, and all of us are human beings with affiliations to our families, our cultures. So some of these are truly unifying forces. When you sit in a table with multiple cultures, having a dinner and having the conversation, it's largely about the same. What can I do out of my life? What do I bring value in work? How do I build my family and friends? And what can I do to build my nation? Right. So I think those are very unifying factors. Um, I have always found that I'm grateful for the opportunity where I can keep away all the noise out of what we see in geopolitics and in news. Really connect as human beings, then each of these cultures have so much to
Yeah.
really teach us.
Yeah, yeah, truly. I think traveling for me has also been one way of really letting go of all the racist ideas that maybe you have very subconsciously grown up with, And the more you travel, the more you see cultures all around. Eventually, I think we're all one, as people seeking the same things, of self discovery, of making the best of your situation around you. So let's just talk about India as one of the world's largest tech talent pools, yet the industry still struggles with skill gaps. Now, what do you believe is the single most important capability future tech professionals must build to go with this constantly evolving dynamic space?
It's a loaded question. See, I don't think I'll go down to a specific skill or capability because that's going to evolve. And I think there's a lot being said out there already about it. A lot of experts have talked about it. What I believe is, I don't know if it's one or two, but this ability to connect dots, because world is becoming very multidisciplinary. Even though I may call myself as a technology professional, every industry, every organization today is a tech organization. So connecting dots, continuously connecting new dots, because that's what evolution means, and building a point of view, I think that's a timeless skill. As we do all of this, if you are in a business environment, how do you continuously look for user value, customer value, business value? Whether you're a technologist, whether you are taking care of housekeeping, whether you're doing building management, doesn't matter. How do you continuously connect the dots back to business and value? I think those don't go away. In my mind, connecting the dots, constant focus on business value, and constantly learning. Those three.
So, as someone who's actively mentor talents, who you've mentored talents, and what qualities and skills do you believe that defines the next generation, of leaders? What is it that they must have within themselves as people?
We've spoken about that. The ability to curate and create will be very important because there's so much today available with you. So, what do you build as experiences out of that? Which means you have to know the problem statement very well as to what you're solving. There is so much out there to solve. We are in no dearth of things that can solve for you. But what do you want to solve for? I think that ability to identify the problem and courage. I think those three will give you the conviction, confidence to be amazingly successful leaders.
And I'm going to reiterate exactly what you said, courage with humility, just for all our listeners. So, how do you build, a high tech performing team that, needs to really be self motivated and innovate constantly because it's so dynamic? Every day there's something shifting.
I think the focus of uh, business and user and technology, that marriage, right, Mohua? I know I've said this probably the third time, but I think that is going to be really, really, really key. Second is truly understanding a domain, because what's happening today is technology is getting truly commoditized. uh, and understanding domain. For example, it could be oil and gas, manufacturing, you're doing something in healthcare. How do you deeply understand the problems that you're solving for and the core domain? I think these two really marry a lot of other things with some of the softer attributes, like you have to be curious to know how differently you can do the same thing. Doing the same thing over and over is not going to lead to innovation. While we do all of this, high performance essentially somewhat gets associated with high stress. So, which means, I mean, I would probably unpack that a little bit. So, from the stress standpoint, instead of thinking about it as high stress, we have to look at this as high set of expectations. So, constantly, how are you setting, resetting expectations for yourself and for the world? I think that's going to be a skill for all of us. I talk about this to my teenage son because I think this is not something which is just a um, professional aspect to worry about. This is a life attribute today because I think the amount of abundance we have in things out there in the world today actually lead to a lot of choices. And when you have a lot of choices, a lot of decisions, that naturally leads to stress, right? So I think that's where how do you set and reset your expectations and having that clarity leads to a lot of high performing teams because then they become cohesive, then they're working about one thing. Then you're canceling a lot of noise, you're focusing on what needs to be done, so all of that becomes a byproduct.
So, let's talk about this huge thing called AI, right? So, everybody's talking about it. So in what ways do you really believe that AI will really reshape the future of work? And I'm quite intimidated, honestly, if you ask me as a writer. And so, do you think AI is really rewriting the rule book, for how organizations will operate going forward?
A resounding yes. I think
God.
anybody who thinks no, I think we really, really need to rethink. Um, is it redefining the future of work? Absolutely. Absolutely. Every field is getting impacted in a good way because what it is really separating is things that can be um, truly delegated outside of your human ecosystem. It's coming out very, very, very easily, right? It's getting separated out. I think that's where each of our best potential, best versions of ourselves are going to be pushed out because there will be no other choice but to do that. That's how I think about it, right? Is it reshaping the future of work? Yes, because it's reshaping a lot of. If you look at industry, the supply chains are being completely reshaped. Who is building what? Who controls the most electricity is becoming the biggest industry today because that drives the data centers, and that drives the GPUs, that drives the AI. So there is a whole circular economy that's being built out. And while day to day jobs, every single job is getting impacted as to how do we leverage AI, because we are also now completely surrounded by technology in every part of the job. You talked of being a writer, whether you're a writer, whether you're a musician. Today, I was seeing a post by Shekhar Kapoor, the famous film director, and he talks of how he was a jury or a judge in one of the AI hackathons for movie making. And in this hackathon, the only entrants were all AI generated films, and he says some of those films made him cry, made him weep, because the amount of emotions those AI generated characters, AI generated plots, and movies could create. So, which means today every career you can think of is getting affected in a very positive way. I think so. The future of work is absolutely going to be different. And I think it's going to take change is not easy for anyone, but I'm very excited about the change it's going to come in. It will not be easy for many of us who want to wait and watch. It will not be easy for many of us who want to stay as is. I think status quo is not going to be a very comfortable state.
That scares me enough, but motivates me enough to quickly pick up all the things that I need to do. So, from your vantage point, what is the most exciting direction that you think technology is like really moving towards right now?
Very interesting, right? I mean, example that come to my mind is now when we have some of these biggest tech houses putting data centers in the space so that you can directly derive power from the sun. Imagine those kind of technologies coming together, what we probably read as science fiction when we were kids.
Yes.
At the same time, imagine technologies which are touching the heartland of India, touching the heartland of the most underserved. So they're
Yes.
bringing back into the mainstream, whether it's through banking, whether it is through just availability of credit, or whether it is just prediction of what's going to happen in the weather so you can look at how do you plant your crops. So I think I could not name one technology, but the advent and the speed at which it is moving, and how some of the large public service governments such as Indian government adopting it to really drive changes at a humanity level, that makes me very excited, but at the same time a little bit anxious, because those system level, humanity level changes are always fraught with um, issues. I think, but I'm going to keep my anxiety down and I'm going to be more excited. So I think that's what really gives me passion to still be in the technology industry.
You're wedded to it, I can see. So, Shalini, there is clear data showing that companies, with more women leaders deliver significantly higher returns. Yet, the majority of the firms still have no women, in key managerial positions, and so, from your perspective, what lies at the heart, of this disconnect, between evidence and action? So, I'd really like your perspective, on this.
It's a hard one. I see slow moving, better positive trends. So let me start with that news. But still, think we do not have enough, right? I see a few factors at play more. One is we continue to still have multi generational workforce, and each generation has a different way of societal understanding of the women versus men dynamic. It still exists, even in a um, um, so-called most modern tech organization. I still see that when you are in different generations, that multi-generation versus the gender, there is definitely a dynamic. Then there is a second factor of the life events which everybody talks about in a woman's life. I think that is where so far world talks about how the women have to push through. Like even when somebody asks me my story, I say how I push through. But then the question in my mind is, why is it that it's that individual's responsibility only? Why is it that the women who's helping progress a family have to give up on something, and the only choice for her to remain in both is just through her sheer will and passion? Why is it that the society, whether it is corporate or work, or family or personal society, doesn't help her, right? So I think that question is becoming more mainstream, which is a good thing. It is still not getting solved enough, but I see a lot more. This is where the dimension of um, financial independence also makes a big difference. I think when you see financial independence, the conversations change just within a family. And when you can fight for that independence, you make better decisions in your life. So I think I would any day encourage anybody, not just a woman or man, to be fully financially independent. I think that drives this whole gap to be bridged, because once you realize the value of having financial independence, you will work for it and you'll fight the systems, and the system will absorb you back. The third is evidence versus action. I still see a lot of signs of being compliant, which is, there are norms. This is percentage quota that I have to have this amount of workforce. I think that quota based mechanism, while it started with the right intent, may have probably outlasted its purpose in some of the places. I think that what happens is when you are filling up quotas, you are not constantly changing systems or evolving systems to drive organic growth of that individual. I think that is where things fall apart, right? Those are like initial three things that I can think of. But again, I still say when I mentor a lot of younger women, is we still need the ability to juggle a lot of balls. While things are getting better, I think our ability to juggle a lot more balls and saying no to what we don't want, we have to develop as a muscle as women. I think naturally it doesn't come to many of us.
Oh, no, it doesn't. We don't know how to say no.
Yeah. And seeking help. We somehow feel that we have to be the heroes and heroines of our own story.
Absolutely.
Seeking help and saying, no, this is all I can do, and I want to do this, and this is all I can do, and so I'll only end up doing this. That triad and sticking by it is a big skill, and you have to make that choice every single day.
Every day, every day. I agree with you, And I know I'm going to probably, shift a little bit, but then now it's just now that I start valuing the fact that my mother was a working woman, and in a household where no daughter-in-law was ever working. And she continued to hold her ground, saying that I will not give up my work. And because she didn't, Shalini, I could go into a school where I spoke better English than her. And that was her dream, and a very expensive school, which was beyond her means, of her parents' means, but she shifted it. And when you're younger, you probably don't even understand till you become a mother, a wife, and you've juggled all those roles and those balls, and then you realize that, oh my God, it takes so much of gumption to be able to say that no, I will stick my ground and do what I will do.
So very true. So very
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. So, we know that women are present in HR and customer facing roles, but they remain underrepresented, in tech, product, and finance. So, and also sometimes let's just say the strategic decision making, of course there is a change, but at an overall much more larger macro level, so what does this imbalance, you know, what does it say to us, and why does it still persist, and how can organizations really correct this disparity? Because they have to change. There is no choice there, Shalini.
It exists. Um, but we have some good stories. Like, for example, if I think of finance and banking, I think India has a far better story of women leaders than any other country. Some of our biggest banks are led by women. But I think the fact that few experiences from my end talks of, one is there is this misconception that you measure everybody by the same scale. We are meritocratic. We have to be meritocratic for this gap to really be bridged. But when the scale is already tilted differently for one group, that could be gender, that could be anything else, versus the other, you have to change the scale. I think one of the biggest mistakes we do is that starting with some of the simplest things, right? Hiring is okay. I think that could be a very democratic, very anonymized process. But once you get into an organization, how you grow, you have to be able to grow with your own strengths and skills. And that comes differently. The skills come differently, strengths come differently for individuals It need not be always gender based. I'm just talking of how diverse skills can be used within an organization. And when they're all measured the same way, they're all pushed down the same path, when every role model of yours look like the same, when you think of CEO, you can only think of a mid 50s male. Hopefully nowadays you see a lot more races, but at one point it used to be a white Caucasian 50s male. That was the CEO image in everybody's mind. Even a woman would think of the same image. So and then you would behave like one, because you think that's the only way you can say. So that whole individuality and how do you respect that is not a very well written rule book today in most organizations. I feel that's at the crux of a lot of issues, because how does Mohua progress versus how does the Shalini progress could be very different. And how are you leveraging each one's strengths but still giving that learning path and career path is a true leader's job. So that whole aspect is one in my mind. Second is I touched upon the role modeling. It's become a chicken and egg because you don't have enough role models. We end up trying to emulate styles of role models we think we have to go against for success. So success looks like only one dimensional success. And then most of us may not fit into that mold. So you end up not succeeding. And that drives you to think that, okay, these are my ceilings I'm hitting, right? So I think that whole thing has to go away, because when I work with any of our large institutions like our NASCOMs, etc., one of the things that we are absolutely trying to drive is how do you show more role models which look different, which look like you, which feel like you, which talk like you, right? When you see that more and when you hear those stories, you're in different shape to understand the paths can be very many for succeeding. So that's another. And we need to do a lot more of that. Third is I think we have to go beyond lip service of, okay, return to work and, I'll give you a crash and all of this. Um, to truly meaningful opportunities. And if an individual, whether women, man, or non-binary, you're going through a journey, can the system support you through your journey? I think that speaks of authentic organizations versus not. None of this takes away from merit. Merit has to be the baseline. If you're not capable and you want to use the gender card or any other card, that doesn't work. Anywhere it doesn't work. So I think those are my initial insights.
Amazing, Shalini. It just makes me go back into the time when I was a mother, a very young child, who had a lot of allergies. And, I was heading nationally an advertising agency's PR division for them. But I had to quit work because, on Saturdays they used to call me to work. And people were not very friendly when I brought my child along with me, into my office, in my cubicle. And I could see that the eyes were like, and these are men that you report to. And I'll never ever forget, because you start apologizing in spite of being in a very, very, senior position. Um, because that was the only day I had with my child, Saturday and Sunday, and I've come in for a presentation and I want to bring my child with me,
I
so
I've had that too in when my child was younger and still a baby. I would and I had taken a choice to shift away from the headquarters to work out of home. It felt like I was doing two full-time jobs where both of them required 24 hours, and I was doing that. But you're out of sight, out of mind,
yeah.
and you're naturally ridden with this label of, oh, that work from home person. With a child, don't expect much, right? Even though you are probably the high potential superstar in your organization, just before that, the person has not changed, the situation has changed, and the person is doubly,
Exactly.
triply working to prove herself.
Yeah.
So I fully understand where you're
Yeah.
coming from. In fact, in Planview, one of the smallest changes I brought in was I said, I'm not going to have this barrier of you cannot bring your family. You can bring your kids any day in. And I started that. I kind of led that by taking my son almost every possible opportunity, even today. He knows more of Planview than many of my employees. I said, that's how, because workplace is not different. Work and home, work and
Totally.
life are not different.
Yeah.
So
And, my boss was a father himself.
there's a difference between a father and a mother, no, Momo?
100% Shalini. I agree with you fully there.
Things are changing, though. Things are changing. Yeah.
Yes, things are changing for sure, for sure. So let's talk about India's rise in the global tech India, and how, we are home to some of the world's most advanced capability and innovation centers. So how do you believe that India uniquely offers, what do we offer really to the global enterprise ecosystem?
I think we still are the best in terms of scale and speed when it comes to talent. While we just call ourselves as talent factories and huge talent powerhouses, I still believe we are somebody who can truly help businesses with both scaling and scaling at speed. I think that remains a power. Second is, we also are one of the most adept working communities when it comes to change. Not driving change, but adapting to change or adopting change. I think that helps a lot of enterprises. And third is, just if you look at from a technology standpoint or any organizational standpoint, India is very, very quickly becoming the center where you want to start blueprinting any new change, whether it could be a digital movement, whether it is a new kind of a product line. You want to first incubate in India because it's, as a market also, it's a scale market. You can test, validate very well, and once you do that, then you take it to the rest of the world. Is kind of becoming a blueprint, especially when it comes to digital. So those three are our biggest advantages, and we have so far been in a fairly good geopolitical standing. I know we've had some hiccups here and there now, but that has helped us too, compared to many other, like we have a China plus one strategy, or there is beyond the cost, right? I think some of that, and we've continued to hold on to a fairly steady government and an environment, business friendly environment. Some of those factors are big, big, big levers for organizations to scale using India. And honestly, India as a domestic market is burgeoning, right? I mean, the amount of disposable income out there. So it's very attractive. While it's not the easiest market to crack in, it's a hugely attractive market. So that's also another factor.
So let's just talk about the gap between, academic learning and industry needs, which is widening every day. So how do you think we can bridge that?
It's a long, hard process. I know we have NEP coming out. It has to start very at the entry levels of schooling, in my mind, which is a longer process. I know there are efforts going on, because I think it's been how many years? I don't know if you can take a guess where our syllabus has been updated. So when kids are still studying, for example, Fortran or these languages which have not even used for like last 20 years, some of that whole update, I think we've not been the most, because it's also the scale of education that we have to provide in this country.
Yeah, yeah.
But leave that aside, I think there are some super fundamentals that our education system is very strong at, which is our foundation in sciences, and how we go into depth of understanding theoretical physics or science or maths. I think we are super strong in that. And even in humanities, the kind of foundations that we have, I think that can never be diluted, right? So there's a pro and a con. Then the whole multidisciplinary approach. Today world really requires people with multidisciplinary individuals. We can no longer be, okay, I'm a science graduate, I'll only do this. I think then you're stuck in a certain rote which doesn't work. You're stuck in a certain uh, grade and band. You will not be able to grow. So if you have to grow, if you have to be inventive, innovative, and you want to really do the whole make in India kind of a culture, there, and we have to, if we have to build innovation, we have to be multidisciplinary. I think that is both in education as well as the talent readiness from academic becomes very critical. A lot of that is happening in today's universities. Third is, I think, the industry needs itself are really changing more very rapidly. So I think today, when we hire grads, I don't think we're really looking for the hardest skills. We're looking for probably the most foundational conceptual understanding, plus probably the, I would say, ability to learn, which has not changed. When I was hired also, they were looking for the same. When we are hiring now also, they're looking for the same, which is, can you learn? Because what you can learn is very, very different in college versus industry. So while apprenticeships etc are really good, and I think we should do more of that, the industry led learning is absolutely critical. Domain specific learning is very critical. I would say these are some of the things that will absolutely change the bridge the gap.
So what kind of a curriculum or mindset do you think should educational, institutions adopt, to prepare students for the future? As we said, the syllabus needs to change. What is the mindset, honestly, that needs to change?
Not more application based mindset. And also a lot more. What I mean by application is solving problems, not just learning concepts, right? That is number one change that we need to bring in. Second is really driving what I would call verticalization in some of these horizontal type of education works probably till your 12th. But post that, you have to start getting a lot more focused on verticalization, even in some other specific subjects. And then I spoke of multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary is very important. For example, today, a concept of design is so horizontal. You need design in a fashion design to product design to industrial design. And there, what you need is psychology. You need to understand your users, but what you also need is sciences. And if you are doing a product design in software, you need to understand the technology of software. So I think simple example of multidisciplinary, right? So those three, I think, are key elements to change with real ability to work in a corporate. I think that itself is a change. When you have to work under some instructions, but also you have to take your own decisions. You have to be responsible for your failures. These are all skills nobody is taught unless you do something, you own something. I think that needs to happen more.
So you're also talking about emotional intelligence that they need to navigate, right?
Clearly, emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
ability to turn curiosity into something of real, and resilience. I think all of us, the next generation needs to learn a lot of resilience
Oh,
because
yes, for sure.
the whole idea of gratification, the delayed gratification itself is a skill they need to learn, which as human beings we are born with, but the way the generation has grown, the fact that you have to work for X amount of hours and X Y amount of years to achieve something is a skill by itself.
Beautiful, Shalini. I love what you said. Delayed gratification is what the new generation needs to learn. So, Shalini, the last question: how do you define success today? And has your definition shifted, over the years, of success? What does it mean to you today?
I think success definition of success changes based on your lifestyle stage also, right, Mohua?
Yes.
So, um, what I mean, I when I reflect back on that question, one of the things probably is just remained constant for me when I think of what success looks like for me is, have I been able to create impact in whatever community, whatever industry, whatever work or professional environment, mentoring environment I'm there. So I think that impact, the definition of impact, I think has been a big, big common factor. But has it changed? Yes, it has changed. I think um, I've always been a person who goes with the flow. So it's not that I had like a roadmap and a timeline for everything. So which probably is a good thing, given that life throws so many things at you.
Oh, yeah.
But what I have now is a lot more gratitude. And which means that I definitely find a joy in a lot of small successes too. At the same time, I do know that long term success means a much, much, much longer investment cycle, whether of time, attention. So, which means small failures do not affect as much.
Amazing. I will remember this, that small failures should not affect us much. So, Shalini, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation. Thank you for taking out your time, sharing the journey with us, your vision, your leadership wisdom with all our listeners. And for everyone listening today, if this episode has inspired you even a little bit, make sure to subscribe, share it with somebody who needs to hear this, and follow us for more conversations with leaders shaping the future. It has been an honor for me today to have Shalini on our episode. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Mohua. It's been a truly insightful conversation for me. You brought out a lot out of me, and thank you for sharing your story. And happy to be here.
Thank you.